All right, guys. Day 5 has begun, although it's going to be probably a decent bit shorter today because there are things going on. I have some people visiting, and I want to dedicate some time to them instead of this video. I've already dedicated about 7.5 hours total after the last 4 days, so I'm hoping that we can at least get the bottom timing belt cover off. I bought a 12-ton bottle jack, and I placed that under the engine. Obviously, the engine did survive on the jack stand all night last night with the hydraulic jack over there barely supporting the engine just a little bit. So, and I did check the oil pan. It's not bent or anything, so we did pretty good there. Like I said yesterday, I got my 1/4-inch socket. I got a couple more rubber stands for the jack stands just to keep everything nice and secure. I did get some fuel line disconnects. That way I can hopefully disconnect some the hoses that were in my way a little bit easier next time, along with some hose grip pliers. And a 12-point bit set because they did not come in singles, but the 19 and 17 are there if I do need to change any seals. Next thing I'm going to do, I don't think I'm going to film this because it's not really in a spot that's easily recordable, but I am going to uncover this now so we can start working again. I got all these timing belt cover bolts off, and I did some more mannering of raising and lowering the engine. It was still very difficult to get this out, so that's still sitting there right now. But the one thing I noticed that I did wrong, and I should have followed the DIY on, this isn't the only thing, I messed up another thing too, but down here, this dog bone mount, I only took one screw out. Basically, the back of the engine wasn't coming up because it was still tied on by that loose dog bone screw. So I undid that, took that off, and now I think the engine should hopefully have a little bit more room to rise up a little bit further. Hopefully far enough to get this thing out of here. Both the ECS tuning document and the other DIY I have do not mention this step. There was one video I found on YouTube, I think I'll try to link that in the description as well, where what they did is that they unclipped these AC lines so that you can move the AC lines upward, and that would then allow you to get this out, basically. And there's two ways you can, or two different attachments that look like are holding these from being raised up. First is this Torx nut down here. I'm going to see if I can loosen that and see if that'll give me any clearance. See that black clip there? It's right above that electrical connector. That black clip, basically, they loosened, which allowed for them to raise up the AC lines. After a very manly encounter, the metal is gone. It's down here. And I would like to royally say, screw this. This is the worst piece of automotive engineering I've ever dealt with so far. I know I haven't dealt with a lot, but this was horrible. The fact that they had to fit this in here, in between this bracket, it's ridiculous. Now, how did I get this out? Well, they were right about the AC lines. Getting these up and out of the way, up and over this way, really did clear out a lot of room. And as you can see, this engine is jacked up to the point where I'm afraid that I want to be able to let it down as soon as I possibly can. Because as you can tell, this isn't straight, and this is heavily biased to this side to make this happen. Make sure you loosen your dog bone mount all the way. What had to happen was I had to mark the timing belt early. As you can see, I've done that with some Sharpie, and that's the arrow there for the original timing right there. So it does line up, and I did the same thing with the sprocket on the bottom. Now, I took out the idler pulley. There's an idler pulley right here. You can see the little socket for it there. I took it out, put it to the side, which gave me just enough room for the little piece that screws in here to push past this timing belt. Now, I did squeeze it a good bit. I moved past it. I physically pushed past it, meaning this timing belt I probably should never use again. So just letting you guys know that that's what worked for me. Lower timing belt cover is off. And it's now time to take a little look-see and see if the oil leak we found is anywhere to be found inside of this timing belt cover. Now, I know I'm getting up real close because I don't really have much room down here, but as you can tell from the tensioner, no. I mean, I don't think there's even actually a hole for oil to leak there. Water pump, I don't know. No, nothing really there. There's a little bit of, I'm noticing this. That may be coolant, I'm not sure. But if it is, it's a very small amount. So we're replacing the water pump, so that'll resolve that. I actually took a sample of, you see all the stuff pooling up? I took a sample of that. It really looks like gasket material. It doesn't smell like anything though, meaning it could be oil, but you see this little deposit right here? This little piece, it kind of looks like gasket material. So we might have gotten away with it there. But like I said, the video I placed before, you can see all of the oil up here around this side. I think, like I said, there's something coming up from farther up there and leaking down the side here and then pulling onto the belly pan. So there's something going on, but I don't think it's in the timing belt cover. We might be okay there. You can obviously see right here, there's some oil buildup around the outside, but then as soon as you go above that, right here, that's clean. Right here, that's pretty clean too, all the way around here. So it's coming down the side, I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's anything in the timing belt cover. I think it's pretty conducive. You can also see right there, in between this gear and the bottom, there's really barely any oil, or it doesn't even look like oil leaked down there. And the timing belt isn't soaked either. The timing belt's nice and dry. So that's my analysis. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But either way, we're going to go ahead and change this entire timing belt here. Coolant is draining, but not the way they told me to do it. So I'm going to explain that here real quick. So as you can see, the coolant is draining from a location other than what the document specifies. Basically, the document says that you should drain from this upper radiator hose right here. That's probably not a great view, but you know, right below this little air tube kind of thing, drain it here. Well, that was really difficult to get to, if I'm really honest. That hose clamp was really hard to get off, and then after I got it off, there's a lot of pulling you gotta do to get that off, and I got a little bit of coolant from that, but this looked a lot easier, and it's a lot lower in the cooling system for sure. So as you can see, that's the engine oil pan right there. I don't know what this is. This looks like a solenoid of some point, or of some kind, and you unbolt this bolt here that's mounted right there in the center of the screen, and that lets this pipe down. You can take a smaller hose clamp off of this and just pull it off of this plastic bit, and it's lower in the system than this is. And there is and this came from a forum post. I'm linking that in the description as well for all of you who are looking to drain coolant on these guys. I would consider this to be way easier than doing it through this radiator hose, because you can tell with this radiator, see, there's no drain plug. I don't know why. I feel like I should have put one on there, but whatever. I took the timing belt off here. On the old and the new belt, if you want to be exact with the amount of teeth that it is from the old one to the new one, this is the old belt. There's your marking for the camshaft, and then down here's the marking for the crankshaft. From here clockwise, that's 59 teeth. So you can go over to your new belt and make markings from here, and then 59 degrees or 59 teeth clockwise. You can make a second mark, and if you put that where the white mark is on the camshaft, and then put this second mark where it is on the crankshaft, then you should be golden as far as making sure your engine timing is all set. We're at the final leg of taking this apart. I just took the last part apart, the water pump. As you can see in there, let me actually take a good look in there. So that's obviously the block, as you can see, and there's coolant right there. It was, so there must have been, as you can see how it trails off down here like this, maybe there could have been a minor leak. So here's the old water pump. I'm taking a look at it right now. The pulley itself, I checked it. It actually doesn't really have any play, vertically and horizontally. So that's a good sign. But this O-ring, there we go, get it to zoom in here. I mean, it doesn't look horrible, but it definitely looks like it's a little bit worn out from time. So I'm definitely glad I'm at least replacing that. And then this impeller, honestly, it doesn't really look bad at all. It's not shredded or anything. There's nothing going on there. So I feel really happy that I checked this, and then I'm putting a new one on. And I did notice that some of these idler pulleys and the tensioner that I just put on there, I actually mounted that. Just checked the angle and everything, like the DIY and the ECS tuning document says to do. And everything worked out fine there. That is a revision newer than the one that I pulled off of the engine. You can check the part number on the device, or on the, you can check the part number on the part itself here. You can read that off there. You can read all those codes and see if it's a newer revision or not. Now, the only problem with draining where I drained from that hose at the bottom is that it did not drain any coolant out of the block. So whenever I pulled that water pump out, coolant went flying everywhere. It wasn't horrible. I mean, as you can tell, it didn't pool anywhere here or anything, but it probably hit the side of this. But I had my drain pan ready, thankfully, so I caught most of it. But as you can tell, a little bit of a spill. I would say total out of everything that came out, a quart came out of the hose, and then probably another cup at least was spilled on the floor, as you can see here. And at this marking, we're right at, I think that's 3 quarts, almost 3 quarts there. And I looked at the coolant itself, and besides the little shavings, that's just gasket material, like I said, from here. And at least this area got a good little bath. I'm gonna clean all this up with shop towels and stuff, and you know, the usual. But yeah, everything here 3 quarts, but the coolant looks good. So obviously the water pump wasn't worn out to the point to where it was sending anything through the block that wasn't good for the engine. Ending day 6 on a high note. Underneath this timing, or underneath this thing, as you can see, is the new belt. I put that on along with the new water pump, idler, pulleys, and the tensioner. And I have torqued all of those down except for the tensioner. And obviously I'm going to rotate the engine a couple of times and make sure that everything seems to rotate like it should with those same markings. Obviously ran into plenty of struggles, as you can see, but that's why I filmed as many of them as I could. So, yeah, I will hopefully see you all tomorrow. Day 7, the final day, hopefully, has begun. And as you can see, there's your new timing belt. I know I didn't show you guys yesterday, but this is the big reveal. As you can see, there's the white mark on the camshaft there. As you can see down here, timing mark on the crankshaft lines up as well. I'll let you all know if I run back into anything, and I'll hopefully come back with success with this worst piece of automotive engineering like I was talking about earlier. My plan, like I said in the last video, was to try to put this bottom bracket on after this was tightened down. No sir, that's not going to happen. Want to know why? Well, there's a big bump right in the middle of where the tensioner goes on the top timing belt cover, and then that goes over to the bottom timing belt cover as well. And that bump comes up against where this is tightened, so when you try to stick the bottom part of the timing cover in, it collides with this. So I had to loosen this bracket all the way, jack the engine up and down a few times while still trying to wiggle this thing out as far as I could. And as soon as I was able to get it to a place where I could actually fit that bottom timing belt cover on, I tightened it down again, only to realize that this top timing belt cover also has that same bump. So I loosened it a second time while lifting and lowering the engine, and then I was finally able to fit this top timing belt cover in. Now, so any other car that has this design, make it better, please. Whenever the next model year comes out, whatever it is, obviously we've all converted over to timing chains now, but for those who still have belts, please don't configure it like this. It's a nightmare to work on. Alright everybody, I just came back from the test drive. It's late at night on day 7, and we're done. The only thing that happened when I went and took the test drive was a slight dip in the coolant. Obviously, when I fully fixed the timing belt, I had the engine run and idle for a good bit, and it took plenty of coolant into the system, and I poured in what I needed, and I was like, oh, I have some extra left over. Well, that extra was definitely needed because I didn't warm the engine up, I guess, all the way. The coolant temperature got to where it needed to be, but I guess the engine temperature didn't get to where it needed to be. So when I drove the car, it then ate a little more coolant, and it was like, hey, you're low on coolant. So I got back and checked the coolant level. It wasn't all the way gone. There was still some left. It just wasn't all the way full. So I took my extra and filled it up, and we should be good. I'm just going to pack up some coolant with me whenever I take this car on its next trip, just in case it needs more, and we should be all set from there. So, yeah, I know it's kind of not really the best video situation here for the end of the video, but after however many hours, I'll put a total somewhere here. Glad this is done. The noise itself, yeah, it's still there. I think either it's just a normal noise. I've been looking around on forums, and some people have been saying that that's normal, or it's just somewhere else, or it has to do with the oil leak. Either way, we'll figure it out, and I'm not getting any check engine lights or anything like that, so if anything comes up in the future, we can hopefully diagnose from there. And obviously, you know, when I idled the car and all that, checked for leaks, there are no leaks, so we're all good. If you guys want any further information on what I did for this, you can obviously hit me up, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys put either in the comments or in a private message, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Hope you guys have a good one, and that was a lot of work. I don't know whether I ever want to do that again. I'll do other repairs, but this one, it was pretty annoying. Alright everybody, I just came back from the test drive, and you can't see anything. Jeez.